Matthew, aren't you admitting that you were working for the Israeli government instead of the US government? Yes, you are. You just don't realize it.
The US basically accepted the Israeli notion of that we will not put any deal on the table that will end the war.
The prime minister wouldn't agree to it because, frankly, we had spent the last few months seeing the government of Israel at times try and sabotage an approach to get to a ceasefire. They were always looking for ways to add conditions or make the terms more difficult.
Will it be true to say that you wanted a deal, a hostage deal, more than Israel?
I believe that's true.
The man that you just heard being honest for once in his life used to be the State Department spokesman. Matthew Miller is his name, and he lied to all of us over and over again throughout the course of Israel's genocide until Biden was the Biden administration was no longer in office. I want you to know that, so no one makes the mistake of helping these disgusting, loathsome pricks engage in the, character laundering that they're trying to engage in right now. But nonetheless, he served as an aide to former Secretary of State Anthony Blinken, another loathsome human being. Both men, and especially Miller, provided endless cover for Israel during the Biden administration. But now Miller is admitting that the government of Israel has repeatedly sabotaged ceasefire deals with Hamas that could have brought the hostages home. Same thing that we've been saying on this show over and over again. Now, wow, aren't we so lucky? We have former Biden administration officials admitting that that was the case and has been the case. So in this interview with Israel's Channel 13, Miller gave some pretty damning examples that prove Benjamin Netanyahu never prioritized the lives of the hostages. I think that's pretty evident with the way the hostages have effectively been abandoned by Israel. And here he is talking about what happened in the lead up to the assault on Rafah last year in 2024.
Before the invasion of Rafah, we were working on a shorter deal. We'd been working on the phased proposal, but the Israeli government agreed to a proposal for just a 6-week ceasefire, not tied to any permanent end to the war. We were publicly urging Hamas to accept it, and there was a good reason for Hamas to agree to that, which is there was an invasion of Rafah looming, and this might be a way to avert that invasion. And in the middle of that proposal being submitted to Hamas, the prime minister publicly said that Israel was going to invade Rafah whether there was a ceasefire or not. And you can imagine how much harder that made it to get a deal over the line. Hamas didn't accept the proposal, then they've lost the chief motivation to agree to a deal.
Now, I just want to remind you all that there were Israeli officials who, said that they felt no pressure from the Biden administration to accept a ceasefire deal. So you have two sides saying two different things to some extent. Both sides consist of liars, so I don't know what to believe. What I do know without a shadow of a doubt is that Israel didn't want a ceasefire, never wanted a ceasefire. And yeah, Netanyahu did say publicly that he intended to continue fighting. Because it's not about the hostages, it's about a land grab. It's about the Greater Israel Project. Anyone who thinks otherwise is just delusional at this point.
Yeah, I think both things can be true. So I think that the way that it played out was based on reporting during the time, but mainly after Biden left because, well, I'll get back to why in a second. What Israel would do is they would do something outrageous and then America would try to walk it back a little bit. And to them, that was pushback. They're like, what do you mean? We politely asked Israel, our overlords, in private meetings, can we please, pretty please, do the things that we both say that we're doing publicly? Like we want to get to peace, we want to get the hostages back. Can we please do that? And Israel would say, shut up, we're not doing that at all. And then America would be like, oh, I'm sorry. And then they would go out, and Matthew Miller himself would go out and go, Israel is doing everything possible. It's all dirty Hamas. It's the dirty Palestinians' fault. Beloved Israel has done nothing wrong. So in the Biden administration's mind, what? We pushed back. We asked politely in the beginning,
pathetic.
And we got slapped across the face, and then we cried, and then we did as we were told, right? And the Israelis think, yeah, that was no pushback. We told you bitches what to do, and then you walked out like our dogs and did exactly as we ordered you. So as we show you these clips, I want you to keep in mind that whenever anybody's in power, right? Whether it's Trump or Biden, They say Israel's right about everything. Israel's the greatest. The Palestinians are wrong, terrorists, etc. But when they're out of power, they go, oh yeah, we were lying the whole time. No, Israel is the one blocking all the ceasefires, blocking peace. They never wanted it in the first place. So don't make the mistake of believing either Democrats or Republicans when they're in power, because that's when they're being legally bribed by the Israeli lobby.
So Miller also recounted what happened in May of last year in 2024 when Netanyahu seemed to really change his approach entirely. So he had signed off on a proposal for the release of the remaining hostages in 3 separate phases that would essentially culminate in an end to the war and a withdrawal of the Israeli troops from Gaza. And then, just 4 days later, Joe Biden gave a speech revealing the details of this proposal, fearing that Netanyahu might retreat or might change his mind if it wasn't announced publicly, okay? We told the government of Israel only an hour or 2 before the speech because frankly, we had spent the last few months seeing the government of Israel at times try and sabotage an approach to get to a ceasefire, and we were determined not to let that happen here. It boxed the prime minister in and made it very difficult for him to walk away from it. But in the hours after Biden gave the speech, as you can imagine, as you guys probably remember, Netanyahu's office began leaking messages suggesting the proposal laid out by Biden was not the same as what the prime minister had agreed to, effectively embarrassing, humiliating Biden. And by the way, Biden allowed it to happen again and again and again. You couldn't get enough of it. He might have like a humiliation fetish. But that's exactly what happened. Then in July, when Hamas made an offer that negotiators thought was good enough to finally secure a ceasefire, Netanyahu changed the terms again. That's not me saying it, although at the time I did say it. Now you finally have Miller admitting it, even though he lied to the American people when Biden was in power. Take a look.
Over the course of July, we got bogged down in other issues. The government of Israel came back with its insistence on keeping troops in the Philadelphia corridor. That maybe was the most frustrating of all because we were so close to getting a deal that could have certainly brought hostages home and maybe ended the war once and for all. And then we presented a proposal to bridge those differences, and the prime minister accepted that proposal. And the proposal was very clear about when Israeli soldiers would withdraw from Philadelphia. Somehow it managed to leak that he told the families of hostages that Israel would never withdraw from Philadelphia, which of course was a complete contradiction of the position that he had taken.
It's almost as if you can't trust the Israeli government, right, Matthew Miller? But you couldn't say that out loud. Then Defense Minister Yoav Gallant said that he tried to persuade Netanyahu and the rest of the cabinet that the IDF could quickly retake the Philadelphia corridor if needed, and that securing the release of the hostages who might not survive much longer was more essential. But he was overruled, and the government voted in favor of a decision advanced by the premier for Israel to remain along the border because this isn't about the hostages, it's about the Greater Israel Project. Fast forwarding a bit, actually, let me give you a chance to jump in, Cenk.
Okay, so real quick on Yoav Gallant there. Notice he's saying, look guys, we could just lie to them. We could say that we're gonna give the Philadelphia corridor back and then we'll get all of our hostages and we'll violate the peace treaty like we always do. Like that's just as an obvious aside in this story, that Israel never tells the truth. And they're just a matter of, do you break the deal before or after, right? You make the deal. And what's second interesting part of that is that Netanyahu said, no, I wanna lie ahead of time, not afterwards. Why? Because he doesn't want the hostages back. Because if he has the hostages back, then he has no excuse to stay in Gaza. And he desperately needs an excuse to take Gaza. So that's why he's saying no to every peace deal. He's lying at every turn. He's betraying every promise, right? Because it was never about self-defense. I mean, come on, they had a stand down order for 6 hours. Are you kidding me? On October 7th? You can get from almost anywhere in Israel to the border in about 45 minutes with a helicopter. And you stand down for 6 hours. Okay, so now, this is super important. Matthew Miller and almost all the former officials act like they didn't have a choice.
I know.
And that's so telling.
And insulting.
Right, because what they're saying is, well, yes, now I'm telling you the Israelis lied about every part of this, right? And they made us look like fools. But he makes it sound like they had no choice at all. Well, you did though, Matthew, didn't you? Couldn't the president of the United States say, no, you're gonna do what we tell you to do, otherwise we're gonna cut your funding? Or you lie to me one more time, or you lie in public one more time about a peace deal, or you don't get our American hostages back, and we're gonna cut off your funding. But it's so obvious, even after the administration is over, to people like Matthew Miller, they think, no, we don't have that choice. America must serve Israel, and everything they want, we must give to them. So you see how we were bamboozled. There was nothing we could do.
But why? Why? Matthew Miller was a State Department spokesman. He doesn't have to worry about re-election. So why did you, I wanna understand why there is this deference to anything and everything Israel wants. And then you have these pro-Israel groups getting all huffy and puffy when I say that our government is controlled by Israel. I mean, how could you argue otherwise at this point?
Matthew Miller, in these clips, it's a confession, an implicit confession he doesn't even recognize to this day, that the US government was totally controlled by the Israeli government. Because the US government would make a suggestion, right. Israel would say no.
Slap it down.
Right, slap it down and aggressively and humiliatingly. And then we would go, okay, then we'll do what you want.
Here's more money.
Yeah, here's more money, here's exactly what you want. And we'll lie, and Matthew Miller is now admitting that. We'll lie to cover up your crimes. We'll lie about you betraying us, forget the Palestinians, but betraying the peace process, betraying getting our hostages back. So Matthew, aren't you admitting that you were working for the Israeli government instead of the US government? Yes, you are, you just don't realize it.
So according to Miller, Netanyahu straight up told him that Israel would be at war for decades to come. And when we say at war for decades to come, understand us, the US taxpayers, will be bankrolling it, of course. Take a look.
The secretary was laying out all of our concerns to the prime minister and to the rest of the war cabinet. And he said, without a plan for the day after the conflict, you are going to be dealing with an insurgency in Gaza forever. You have continued instability in the West Bank. You are making it impossible to realize the dream that the state of Israel has had since its founding. You're going to be bogged down here fighting this war for years and decades to come. And the prime minister said, you're right. We are going to be fighting this war for decades to come. That's the way it's been. That's the way it's going to be.
Congratulations, America. You have a genocide to pay for decades to come. Because you think they're gonna be done after Gaza? After they slaughter enough Palestinians in Gaza and take over the strip? You think they're gonna be done after they build all the illegal settlements in the annexed West Bank? They're coming for Lebanon. I mean, they've already been coming for Syria. They've been annexing land in Syria. Who knows what they're gonna do with Jordan? Greater Israel Project, it's not a joke. It's in the Likud party's charter. They don't just say it out loud. It's not just in their charter. They are putting action behind it.
And Netanyahu has said that they're going to take Judea and Samaria, and that he believes in a greater Israel, and that's his mission. And he has said from the river to the sea, and then he is done from the river to the sea. But Matthew Miller thinks, as a spokesperson for the State Department, he is not allowed to disagree or criticize Israel. And that is super telling and pathetic. Finally, that decades comment is telling in a way that I don't want you to miss. Because Israel keeps claiming every time they start a slaughter of different Arab lands, Palestinian lands, they start a war, etc. They always say what? Self-defense. Oh, they're gonna wipe us all out. Oh my God, it's self-defense, right? Now in 1967, it wasn't self-defense. They bombed all the Arab countries. Now this is 2 years after October 7th, and they're still slaughtering people in Gaza. So wait, if it's self-defense, how do you know the war's gonna go on for decades? Do you think there's gonna be another attack? How do you know there's gonna be another attack? decades from now. No, what he's saying is this has nothing to do with self-defense. We are going to do a multi-decade war against our neighbors until we grab enough land that is Greater Israel.
So again,
so when he says that and he says we, he is saying America, I am going to make you pay for all of these wars that I'm going to continue for decades on end. And then I'm going to get your corrupt congressman and your moronic media to tell you that it's self-defense and make the American taxpayers
build their empire.
Yeah, build our empire for us, commit genocide for us, pay for the ethnic cleansing of the Palestinians so we can grab more land. I already know it because I'm telling you ahead of time, this is going to last for decades. And to be fair to him, he said it in the 1990s. He said, we want these wars with Iraq, Iran, etc. And he got exactly what he wanted.
And look, I need Western countries to hear me when I say this, okay? All the Western countries, United States, Europe, especially Europe, okay? I don't want to hear any whining about the Islamification of your country because of mass migration. As you aid and abet, or at best case scenario, just remain silent at what's happening in the Middle East because Israel wants to build their empire, okay? The mass displacement that we've seen in the Middle East is the result of us going into countries, bombing countries, overthrowing, governments that Israel doesn't like. All of that stuff has led to mass migration of Muslims. You think they want to go to your stanky ass country? No, I think they would rather be in their homeland, but they can't live in their homeland because it's been bombed to smithereens. That's the reality of the situation. So if you don't want the Islamification of your country, how about you stop aiding and abetting Israel in their disgusting land grabs and empire building? How about that?
Yeah, look. Some people, of course, want to live in lovely European countries.
Look, Europe is awesome. I love Europe, but it makes me so angry that people are blind to what's happening, right? They think they're so high and mighty. They think they're so great, and it's like, oh my God, we're being invaded. No, you are aiding and abetting the destruction of these countries. Where do you think people are going to go? What do you think is happening with the Palestinian people right now?
So let me give you a quick example. So Israel's been agitating for a regime change in Iraq. They got us to do it, congratulations. And this is not speculation. This is all Israeli prime ministers, Netanyahu, Sharon, saying, we want America to attack Iraq. Iraq is our #1 enemy. Now they're saying Iran is our #1 enemy. We want you to attack Iran. And they have said this for different countries in the Middle East. And they've been trying to destabilize the Assad regime for a long time in Syria. Now the Assad regime was terrible and dictatorial, right? So it had plenty of its own problems. But they were looking to destabilize it so they can grab Western Syria. They destabilized it. They did grab Western Syria. They have Western Syria as we speak. But what was the consequence of that? It pushed that entire war and that destabilization pushed Syrians into many countries, other Middle Eastern countries, other European countries. My parents' hometown in Turkey was near the Syrian border. Now it is filled to the rim with Syrian refugees.
Yeah, that's what happens. People get displaced. So when you see the displacement of endless numbers of people from various Middle Eastern countries, ask yourself, why is this happening? Because I guarantee you, people aren't just deciding they're gonna leave everything they've known in their homeland and invade your country. That's not what's actually happening. If you want that to stop, okay, whether you're in Europe or whether you're in the United States, stop voting in favor of politicians that put Israel up on a pedestal and put their own people down, put their own people second. Because if you're gonna do the bidding of Israel, you're gonna keep getting mass displacement of people in that region of the world. That's the reality of the situation. Israel never suffers the consequences, everyone else does. Yeah. That's the reality of the situation.
And look, there's a simple rule that Anna just said. Whether you're here in America or anywhere else, if you see a politician putting Israel above your own country, that's super weird. That's really strange.
Vote them out.
And you should know that they're not working for you, and that they're working for a foreign government, and you'd be nuts to vote for them. So if a politician is taking, here in America, almost all of our politicians are legally bribed. So the Israeli lobby, AIPAC is the head of it, but there's tons of groups, have legally bought almost all of our Congress. So so that's why they work for Israel. In Europe, if your politicians are doing it, you should wonder why. What did they get bought? How did they get bought? Are they being pressured? Are they being blackmailed? But bottom line is, no matter why they're doing it, If any politician anywhere says, I put a different country above our own, obviously they should be fired. Obviously. Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.